Yeah. Oh, we're live. Sorry. Apologies. Joke. Terrible. Terrible humor. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. This is Live Irish Myths, episode number 267. I'm your host, Anthony Murphy. For the next hour or hour and a half, we're going to be delving into Ireland's mythological past, specifically this time talking about the gods and the good people. We're reading from Patrick Weston Joyce's A Social History of Ancient Ireland, Volume 1, which we have been reading on and off for several months now. In fact, if you look at the number above there, we're on reading number 19 from this book, which is an endless treasure, it has to be said, and has provided us with much intrigue, entertainment, and fascination. If you're watching, please do comment, join the chat. I will display all the comments, or most of them, so long as they're not libelous, derogatory, spam, or pornographic. If you are watching, if you're watching on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you'll get notified of future live streams and video uploads. And if you're on Facebook, you may know that we're streaming on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page, but there is also a group called the Mythical Ireland Community where you can post and be more actively involved in conversations, as it were. And also, don't forget, if you're an artist or a creative person, we have a group called Mythical Ireland Creatives, which is a place on Facebook where you can share your work if it is inspired by anything to do with ancient Ireland, mythological Ireland, monumental Ireland, any of that stuff. Monuments, myths, legends, folklore, history, etc., etc. Anyway, you're all very welcome. It's Monday evening here in the Boyne Valley. It was a beautiful spring day today. The sun shone. Not sure how high the temperature got. It was a little bit cool, but it was a very lovely day. It's clear that winter is ending. The sun is higher in the sky. The light is stronger. And of course, the day is longer. I'm going to say hello to a load of people. First and foremost is Elaine Dent Lingenfelter, who is joining us from Texas, where the temperature is a record-breaking 91 Fahrenheit or 33 Celsius, which is very high for this time of year. And I said in reply, well, it was nice here today, but 33 is our warmest ever summer temperature. To which Elaine further replied, if I can find it, I can tell you that's not normal February weather in Texas. Stay cool. Lexi Erickson says, hi, Anthony, in capital letters. And hello to the Tua and Tom, too, with a little smiley face. Because was it last week or the week before when a few people said hello to Tom and didn't say hello to Anthony? And look, I was feeling very left out. Anyway, my fragile ego just could not take it. Alexi, how are you? I hope you're in good form. Rex Fortenberry is saying, greetings to the mighty Tua from a 79 Fahrenheit Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Gotta enjoy it while it lasts. Well, that is true about life in general, isn't it? Lexi reminds us that her copy of A Social History of Ancient Ireland has arrived. So Lexi's going to read along, which is brilliant, which means that you will correct me in terms of any mistakes that I make. What? Me make mistakes? I know. I'm human, as just like the rest of you. Okay, I'm not just like the rest of you. I'm a bit weirder, and I certainly have a very strange sense of humor. Tuesday Thompson says, happy Mythology Monday. Thank you very much in advance of saying happy Tuesday at some point later. You're very welcome. Anne Scott Doherty is in the house watching from a chilly southern Oregon. Hope it warms up there soon, Anne. Hope you get the sort of spring day that we had. It's 17 Fahrenheit in Denver with bright sun and wild winds. Wow. That's cold. That's -8 Celsius. Wow, that's cold. Incredible. Sean Satanta DC says, can't wait. Brilliant stuff, Sean. Hope you're enjoying yourself. I had a lady who was quite an expert on medieval Irish manuscripts and language. He told me today that Setanta should be pronounced Sedanda. Brendan Byrne is saying, evening all. What a beautiful snow moon. Yeah, the moon has been fabulous these last few evenings, hasn't it? Brendan, I'm sure it was a gorgeous day in Glendalough today. Michael Pike is saying, hello, hello, Anthony, Tom, and the Mighty Tua. Eagerly await today's wonderful discussion. Always a pleasure, Michael. Good to see you. I hope you're in good form. Brian at LOA says, greetings, Anthony. Wake up there. I know, right? I mean, let's hope that I don't fall asleep or start yawning again. Samantha Healy says, good evening, Anthony, and all the two. Samantha, you're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Always a pleasure to welcome you into the library. Wayne Bird also. Hello, Anthony. Hello, everyone. Hope all is well. All good, and I hope likewise with you, Wayne. Britt Griffin is saying, greetings, Anthony and folks. Weather just plain strange here in Northern Ontario. How would one describe... Excuse me. I'm starting. How would one describe strange? Is it fluctuating between warm and cold? James Buckner is saying hello from Asheville in North Carolina, USA. James, good afternoon to you. Not sure if we've seen you before. Don't recognize the name. You're very welcome. Hope you enjoyed the stream and indeed the good company. Barb Jordan is here. Barb, good evening / afternoon to you. Barb has the distinction of being one of the Tua who watched the very first episode of Live Irish Myths on the 12th of March 2020. Mariana Dunn is saying, Banach dear Tua and Anthony from sunny Alexandria, Virginia. Well, I'm glad to hear the sun is shining for you, Mariana. I hope it is nice and warm. How do I pronounce that? Giussi Briani is saying, good evening from Italy. Buona serata. My good friend Giussi, thank you for joining us. Yeah, hope you're in good form. Thanks for tuning in. Alan Hoskins is greeting everybody from Ballina, Killaloe. Hope all well, all good, Alan, and hope you likewise are in good form. Anna L is saying, good evening, Anthony and the Tua. Hello, Anna L, just down the road in the county of Dublin. Joe Butler, who's anti-Joe Dublin, if you prefer. Joe Butler is, I'm driving home and listening. I shared the live stream to Mythical Ireland community and Mythical Ireland creators. Brilliant stuff, Joe. Thank you very much. Drive safe. Jay Brown is saying, hello from Ile-de-France. It's been a while, but nice to be back. Well, you're very welcome back. And I hope you're in good form. Bonsoir. No, correction. In Denver, it's 17 Celsius. Sorry, it's about 65 Celsius. Mixed messages. I think I get what you're saying, Lexi. It's about 17 Celsius. Is that 65 Fahrenheit? Yeah, well, you're not far off. 65 is 18.3. So, yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a bit warmer than. Good. Kathleen Gallagher says, hello, Anthony, and all. Gorgeous 50 Fahrenheit today in New York. Brilliant stuff. Kathleen, good afternoon to you. Caitlin Moon is saying, hello from Dublin. Absolutely Baltic today. Well, I was out for the official opening of a big new road here in Drogheda this afternoon and didn't feel the cold as much as I thought I would. Thought it was nice. But it's probably very cold this evening once the sun has gone down and it's dark, you know. Barbara Murphy says, hello, everyone, from a rare wee soft day in Tucson, Arizona. Wow, is it raining in Tucson? Wow, collect some of that. Keep it. Sell it on eBay. Rare Tucson rain. Bottle it and sell it. Tom King is in the house. Oh, hello there, Anthony and the Mighty Tua. I could just see him now. Hello there, Anthony. Hope all good. Dram at the ready, and the first sup is for the fairies. Enjoy story time. Good man, Tom. Brilliant stuff. Yes. I'll tell you, a lovely day for the forging, and probably a lovely night for it as well, in fairness. Brilliant stuff. Heather Marie Leaning is here, saying, evening, Anthony, Tom King, and Tua. I hope you're all well. XX. Brilliant stuff. Heather Marie, lovely to see you, and thanks for joining us. Deborah Gilbert is saying, sunny here. Hope it was sunny there. Hello to all. Yes, it was. And if you're saying sunny here, I'm gathering, Deborah, you probably told us many times where you are, but I'm gathering you're somewhere in the US or in Canada or maybe South America, but I'm imagining somewhere on the North American continent. But Lily Shambles is in the house saying, hi all, good evening to you, Lily. Valerie Gallagher has joined us as well. Hello to you, Valerie. I hope you're in good form. Helen Hurst Chader is also here. Greetings. Good afternoon to you, Helen. Great to see you. Caroline Dash is here. Good evening, Caroline. Hope you are in good form. Well, I think we're up to date, remarkably, after 11 minutes. That's impossible. No way. Any announcements? Just that I'm hoping that the last major piece of the puzzle in the Fornox book will be put in place over, well, tomorrow and next week. It involves a visit to the National Museum of Ireland. So I'm just pasting in the link where you can pre-order your signed copy. That book, all going well, will be published within a month. And the text is almost completed. Valentina Bernardi is saying good evening from the Isle of Avalon. Yes, we are flooded again. Oh, God. I think you need to move up onto the hilltops there, Valentina. And, of course, Valentina is speaking about Glastonbury, that wonderfully mystical old town in England, which is a lovely place. Or Burgess, who is, I know this. I do. I'll give it. It'll be here in a minute. It's Richard, isn't it? Your book, Mythical Ireland, just arrived. Brilliant stuff. So, let me just check on the website here. That was sent on the 16th. So, did it arrive today? 10 days. That's all right, I suppose. But it shouldn't take 10 days to get from Ireland to New York. It only takes 6 hours on an airplane. I know. But I'm glad to hear that it got there, Richard. And I hope that you really enjoy it, as I'm sure you will. Good stuff. Valerie Gallagher is working on an essay for my application to the UCD Experimental Archaeology and Material Culture Master's Programme as I listen. Talk about inspiration. Brilliant stuff, Valerie. And I hope that works out well. Were you on the UCD field trip recently to Fornox, among other places? I met a group from UCD, and they had some professors with them, including Murish O'Sullivan. Caroline is saying maybe move to the Tor. Yeah, St. Michael's Tower. Yes, looks like a good sturdy home. And not very practical if you wanted to run to the shops. But you'd want to be fairly fit. Helen says, love the National Museum. What's not to like, says you. What's not to love? Yes, indeed. Good. So, yeah, I'm going to be reading tonight from the section of it's part 2 and it's chapter 9 of Social History of Ancient Ireland by P.W. Joyce. This is a facsimile reprint. And we're dealing specifically with the subsection of that section, or section of that chapter, which is called For Mythology, Gods, Goblins, and Phantoms. It's funny, because goblins is a bit off-putting. You wouldn't normally hear the word goblin used in terms of Irish mythological characters. It's not a word we would use very regularly, or if at all. Caroline says, run down and crawl back up with the shopping. Yeah, I can imagine. Anne McCallum is in the house. It was a chilly 2 Celsius this morning, but now a lovely sunny 10 Celsius. That sounds very like how it was here today. Great to be here and hope everyone's in good form. Brilliant stuff. Anne, good form here. And likewise, hope you're in good form. Rex says, I'm a goblin. I'm a goblin. I'm a goblin me dinner. Sorry. I'll just get on with the reading, shall I? Oh, yeah. Before I get to that, the other day, as you know, quite semi-regularly, but more often than not these days, I tend to sell some of my my books, my surplus to requirements books that are usually duplicates or whatever. And one of the books that I sold yesterday, I think it was was a paperback copy of a book called, and you may have wondered, having seen it inserted in amongst others, which included. Let me just bring the post up here, so I'm, yeah, which included How the Irish Saved Civilization by Thomas Cahill, a book we've spoken about often. Thomas Rolliston's Celtic Myths and Legends, which we've spoken about often. The Book of St. Bridget, the Book of Kells, a book about 19th century Irish history. There was a book called The Catholics of Ulster. And I know that some of you have seen that and gone, that's an unusual book for Anthony to have in his library. The Catholics of Ulster. What's that got to do with Irish myths and legends? It turns out that that's a paperback version of a book that I already have in my library in hardback. And this is what it looks like. It's a very substantial tome in hardback with a dust jacket. The Catholics of Ulster, A History by Marianne Elliott. And this is her good self on the back cover. A substantial tome, the hardback, running to 642 pages. Published by, if you're interested, there's a reason I'm talking about this right now. Published by the Penguin Press, Alan Lane, which I think is an imprint of Penguin. First published in 2000. So, 24 years ago. So why am I talking about this? Turns out that I had recently started to read it. And the first chapter of this book, which is called The Catholics of Ulster, is called, or titled, should I say, From Cuchulainn to Christianity, Religion and Society in Early Ulster. Beginning with prehistory and the arrival of people into Ireland. I found this chapter to be one of the most brilliant summaries of the development of society in general, and sort of religion as an aside almost, from the Iron Age or from prehistory to Christianity. And I found myself making so many highlights and margin squiggles that I just thought this is just a brilliant introduction. Now, why is it important? The second chapter, which I just finished yesterday, is called Gaelic Ulster, Land, Lordship and People, which is all also brilliant. So Gaelic life, as it were, the traditions of Gaelic life involving, the kings, the Tuatha, the tribes, and their way of life survived in Ulster longer than it did anywhere else in Ireland. It survived until the 17th century, the 1600s, the signing of the Treaty of Mellifont in 1603, the flight of the Earls in 1607, and the plantation of Ulster that came in the 1600s. I am going to read that chapter to you very soon. I believe that I can do so under fair use. The fair use clause in copyright. Would not intend to read the whole lot. It's so far for me, it's been a brilliant work of scholarship and a very, very useful and helpful summary of the development of Gaelic Ireland, specifically in Ulster. Okay, fair enough. But as I say, it survived in Ulster longer than anywhere else. And I just think it would be wonderful to read that on an episode, that chapter. I believe it would be very, very useful. I believe it will fill in the gaps for us in terms of lots of things that we've spoken about over the last few years on our 266 episodes. Coda says hello. If you can hear that, he's barking in the background. Before I continue, just want to Adina Sparks has joined us, coming in just in time. Warm day but very windy with gusts of over 50 miles an hour. Wow. Stay safe, Adina. Thanks for saying hello. Yes, so I really think that we could take a break from P.W. Joyce for one episode, and I could read you that chapter. which is called From Cuchulainn to Christianity. And I believe that you will enjoy it immensely, because I did, so much so that I want to read it again. And when I've read it again, I'd like to take more notes, and I would like to write a synopsis of it, because I find in doing such things, I remember the details much better. But that is a real fascinating insight into early Gaelic Ulster, and therefore, by extension, early Gaelic Ireland, because a lot of it's to do with the Inale kings and the other tribes, like the Maguires and the O'Cahans and the McMahons and etc. etc. And other kingdoms like Oriel, which comes into it in a big way, and then the reasons why the Anglo-Norman invasion failed in Ulster. I think failed is a good way to put it. Didn't survive, and how the complex geography of Ulster helped staving off for a good long time the arrivals of foreigners. Mark Gordon is in Iowa. We're at 70 degrees. 7 degrees out now, then back to the 30s. Wow. Lexi Erickson saying, darn, another book, because I've just recommended one and she has to have it. My Scottish Maxwell family lived in Derry for over 600 years, so I'll order that book. I have to say, I was surprised. You know, it's one that I said to myself, I don't know. I'm also interested in Christianity and the history of the church in Ireland. Not because I'm madly religious, as you know, being agnostic, because it's part of the history of Ireland. But the relationship between the kings and the church is remarkably interesting and complex, and is also addressed in this. I believe that you will have a thoroughly brilliant time, as I did. So we'll maybe do that next week. If not next week, the week after. I'm just trying to think. Next week is the 4th of March. Yeah, we could do it next week. We could even do it the following week. And the week after that is the 18th. That's Sheila's Day. So we'll probably end up talking about St. Patrick and perhaps Sheila that week. I did a lot about Patrick last year, particularly how the story of the saint is inspired, I believe, by pre-Christian myths and legends. Lots and lots, anyway, to digest. Anyway, I think I better stop talking and get on with the reading. Mavanwe is saying, oh no. Is that, oh no, there's another book that I have to get? Or is that, oh no, because Tom said hello? I doubt it very much that it's the latter. Hi, Tom. Hope you're keeping warm there at the forge. Chilly weather at the moment. You see, this is the advantage of having a forge, having a fire. You stay warm when it's cold. Anyway, we're going to talk now. We're going to get stuck right in now. So we're back with P.W. Joyce. If you happen to have the book, we are in the section called Religion, Learning and Art, which is chapter 9, and section 4, which is subtitled Mythology, Gods, Goblins and Phantoms. Ad Astral Music has joined us. Hello. Mavanwe says, yes, the oh no was sympathy for Lexi and her book buying. Yeah, don't pretend don't you all pretend that none of the rest of you are buying these books. I know. You think I came down on the last rain shower? Mavanwe, abebooks.com, order.co.uk, Amazon, whatever it happens to be. And I jest, of course, but I know secretly a lot of you are buying these. Anyway, so without building it up too much, I will read that chapter from the Catholics of Ulster, possibly next week. And when I finish reading it, I think you'll know what I'm talking about, and you will agree that I didn't hype it up too much. I've bought loads of books since the last episode, says Mavanwe. Well, then I sympathise. I know exactly how you feel. No wonder then that I semi-regularly try to offload some of my collection for fear that my house would burst open with all the books that's in it. Names for God. Interesting start. In the Irish language, pardon me, There are several names for God in general, without reference to any particular God, and it will be convenient to bring them all together here, whether in Christian or pagan connection. The most general is Dia, D-I-A, genitive J, D-E father, which, with some variations in spelling, is common to many of the Aryan languages. And of course, remember, as always with this book, where we see the word Aryan, we are talking about Indo-European languages, not Aryan as in the sense that it was used by the Nazis. It was used in pagan as well as in Christian times, this book belonging to pre-World War era. What did I say? It's a long time since I've said when it was first published. 1903, was it? I'm already getting sidetracked. Haven't read a sentence yet, and I'm already getting sidetracked. Anthony, pay attention. 1903. Yeah, shouldn't have doubted myself. It was used in pagan as well as in Christian times, and is the Irish word in universal use at the present. That's interesting. So, yeah, day or J, dia, is pre-Christian in origin. It was used in pagan as well as in Christian times and is the Irish word in universal use at the present day for God. The word fiadu, F-I-A-D-U, genitive fiadat, is sometimes used for Lord or God, for which see Windisch, Worterbach, and Stokes's lives. Art is explained, that's A-R-T, in Cormac's glossary as meaning God. Another name was Jesh, D-E-S-S. The Lady Emer, as we read in the Courtship of Emer, or as we would know it, Tuchmark Emere, in the Book of the Dun Cow, on seeing Cuchulainn, saluted him with the words, "May Jesh make smooth the path before thee." And in the old text, that's from Laura Nahira, folio 122b, paragraph 33 or line 33. Jesh is explained by Dia, God, written in between the lines. There you go. A gloss. John Inman is in Eureka, California. It's a soft day indeed. The Irish Catholic Church has great independence from Rome for a long time. That is a significant part of the story of the development of not just the church and the monasteries, but actually the story of the politics of Ireland in medieval times. You know, I believe you will really enjoy this chapter next week. This word Jesh, D-E-S-S, as a name for God, must have been old and obscure when the book was copied. That's AD 1100. That's Laura Nahira, the Book of the Dun Cow. Inasmuch as the writer thought it necessary to explain it. And it was obscure even at the supposed time of the meeting. For Cuchulainn and Emer carried on their conversation in intentionally obscure words, of which Jesh was one, that the hearers might not understand them. In an old glossary, which is the Dúil Láithne, in the handwriting of Dóald MacFirbish, as quoted by Stokes, the MacFirbishy were renowned family of scribes, weren't they? Or clan who preserved lore. Pardon me, I'm not immediately remembering in exactly what sense. Ola Conrad is joining us from Denmark. Good evening to you. And T has joined us just in time for tea. Coffee's all round, please. Thank you. Make mine a cappuccino. Actually, don't tell anyone, but like, I have the dregs of a glass of wine here. It'll be our secret. 3 other ancient Irish names for God are given, and all explained by Dia. Teo, T-E-O, Tiamud, T-I-A-M-U-D, and Daur, D-A-U-R. The word Comdu, C-O-M-D-I-U, genitive comjed, C-O-M-D-E-D, is often used in old writings for master, God, the Godhead, the Lord, and I think always in connection with Christianity, but it has long fallen into disuse, which is incredible. Imagine there's a time when you can go back where you would hear words on the common tongue that eventually disappeared. But imagine you could go back 1,000 years in Ireland, 1,500 even at a push, and hear words that are probably actually more than 1,500, and hear words that are still used today. Incredible stuff. Lastly, Tirna, Tigerna, means Lord Tirnalat. It was originally and is still applied to an earthly lord. But like the English word Lord, was often used to designate God, as it is to this day. There was a Gaulish god, Esus, whose worship, though at one time pretty widely spread, appears never to have reached Ireland, as his name does not appear in Irish writings. Now, this paragraph is called Gods in General. Somebody said there they just poured themselves a glass, but I can't see it. John has to go out. But glad to see you live again. Toronto is still mild, and I am still studying both Gaelic and Gaeilge. John, no problem. And come here, make sure to watch the follow-up, or not the follow-up, but the saved version of the live stream, which will be available immediately afterwards. And thanks for saying hello this evening. Gods in general. In Irish literature, both lay and ecclesiastical, we sometimes find vague references to the pagan gods in general terms, without any hint as to their identity or functions. The, quote, gods, unquote, are often referred to in oaths and asseverations. I'm not looking up the word asseveration. I'm not, honestly. To affirm or declare positively or earnestly. Pardon me. Let me try that again. The gods are often referred to in oaths and asseverations, and such expressions as the following are constantly put into the mouths of the heroes of the Red Branch. Quote, I swear by the gods that my people swear by, unquote. Tonga Nadea Hungus Mohoa. Quote, I swear to God what my tribe swears, unquote. Tongu Dojia Tongas Mohoa. Quote, I swear by my gods whom I adore, unquote. The Hung Mojo Dan Adram. And I actually like that one, the first one, because I've encountered it previously and I always thought it was lovely. I swear by the gods that my people swear by. Morachu, in his short Latin life of St. Patrick, written near the end of the 7th century, informs us that when King Leary was setting out for Slane on Easter Eve AD 433 to arrest St. Patrick, he ordered 9 chariots to be joined together, quote, according to the tradition of the gods, unquote. All this would seem to imply that, as already remarked, we are not in possession of full information regarding pagan Irish worship, that there is something behind those observances which we know nothing of. Aha. Thank you, Anne. Clink. Here's to your health. Individual gods. But we have a number of individual gods of very distinct personality who figure in the Romantic literature. some beneficent and some evil. The names of many of them have been identified with those of ancient Gaulish gods, a thing that might be anticipated, inasmuch as the Gaelic people of Ireland and Scotland are a branch of the Celts or Gauls of the continent, and brought with them at their separation from the main stock the language, the traditions, and the mythology of their original home. No. We now know that, of course, the Iron Age, the long vaunted Iron Age arrival is mostly a fiction. That the large scale arrival was in the Bronze Age. Shei, or fairies. The pagan Irish worshipped the Shei, Side, but pronounced Shee, i.e., the earth gods, or fairies, or elves. In proof of this, many passages might be cited from both the lay and ecclesiastical literature, but perhaps the most precise statement, as well as the oldest, occurs in Fiach's hymn to St. Patrick. Till the apostle Patrick came to them, this is a quote, darkness lay on Ireland's folk. Which is another way of saying this is Christian propaganda. Yes, till the apostle Patrick came to them, darkness lay on Ireland's folk. The tribes worshipped the Shei, unquote. And that's from the tripartite life of Patrick. A part of this worship was intended for the fairies collectively, and a part was often meant for individuals who will be named as we go along. These Shei are closely mixed up with the mythical race called Tuatha Dé Danann, or more shortly, Dé Dananns, to whom the great majority of the fairy gods belonged. And it would be proper to give here some information regarding both combined. Yeah, so he's saying fairy gods, but in essence, the fairies are a later development of the earlier gods, and the two things are not really equated, you know. Yep, just close your ears if you don't like that, folks. The F word, you know, just pretend you didn't hear it. It'll be grand. The name Tuatha Dé Danann signifies the Tuatha, or people, of the goddess Danu or Danann, who was the mother of the gods. That's in quotes, mother of the gods, and who will be found mentioned further on. According to our bardic chroniclers, the Dananns were the fourth of the prehistoric colonies that arrived in Ireland many centuries before the Christian era. They were great magicians and were highly skilled in science and metalworking. After inhabiting Ireland for about 200 years, they were conquered by the people of the fifth and last colony, the Milesians. And that's interesting too, the last colony. Why is it interesting? Well, that's a long story. Remind me to get back to it. When they had been finally defeated in two decisive battles, they held. I swear I didn't try to yawn there. I didn't try to battle a yawn. When they had been finally defeated in two decisive battles, they held secret council and arranged that the several chiefs with their followers were to take up their residence in the pleasant hills all over the country, the Shei or elf mounds. Elf mounds is a very poor translation, where they could live free from observation or molestation. And for elf mounds, read otherworld mounds, which seems to be a better, a more apt, a more suitable translation of Shei. A detailed account of their final dispersion is given in the Book of Fermoy, a manuscript copied from older books in 1463, where it is related that the Dé Dananns, after two disastrous battles, held a meeting at Brew on the Boyne, that is Brew na Boine, under the presidency, no less, of Manannán MacLear, and by his advice, they distributed and quartered themselves on the pleasant hills and plains of Erin. And that sounds like an alternative rendition of a story that is called The Gawal in Shida, the distribution of the mounds, in which Dagda, as chief of the Tuatha Dé Danann, is the one distributing the mounds. Just give me. I'm just taking a margin note here. Bov Jarug, son of the Dagda, was chosen king, and Manannán arranged the different dwelling places among the hills for the nobles. Deep underground in these abodes, they built themselves glorious palaces, all ablaze with light and glittering with gems and gold. I'll be with you in a second. This is important. Sometimes their palaces were situated under wells or lakes or under the sea. So, why did I stop to take a margin note there? Because I read the following sentence. After hearing that um, Bov Jarug was chosen as the king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and Manannán arranged the different dwelling places among the hills or the Shei for the nobles, we hear this. Deep underground in these abodes, they built themselves glorious palaces, all ablaze with light and glittering with gems and gold. Now, take away the gold for a moment. Don't quite take it away. Glorious palaces, all ablaze with light. Think Newgrange. Newgrange is a man-made she mound, and Angus goes in there after the distribution of the mounds, and uh, after cheating his father out of it. And the place is ablaze with light at the solstice, the light of the sun, and it glitters with gems because Newgrange, of course, was once probably covered with white quartz. And maybe it's glittering with gold as well, as in the golden light of the sun. So when I see stuff like that, I get excited, you know. Uh, uh, Rocio Mariana Lopez, I'm not sure if I pronounced that first name correctly. This is the first time I'm listening to your live stream. I just found your channel a couple of days ago and I love it. I send a big hug from Mexico. Brilliant stuff. Hello. Good afternoon to you and welcome to Live Irish Myths. It is a great pleasure. And you'll get a great, lovely, warm welcome here from the others. Is it Rocio? Is that how I say it? Brilliant. Brendan says, it's not too far back in history that my grandparents would have feared the Shei. Yep. You only have to go back. Mrs. Hickey, who was the caretaker of Newgrange until the excavations began in 1962, said that she wouldn't go near it at night. It was a place for the fairies. So there you go. A different account is given in a much more ancient authority, the 8th or 9th century tale called Mesca Ullad. Is that the intoxication of the Ulstermen? In the Book of Leinster, which recounts that after the battles, Amergin, the Milesian Brehon, was called on to divide Erin between the conquering and the conquered races. Quote, and he gave the part of Erin that was underground to the brackets spiritual, close brackets, Dé Dananns, and the other part to his own corporeal people, the sons of Mila. After which the Dé Dananns went into the hills and fairy palaces and became gods. But it is to be observed that individuals belonging to other races, as for instance some of the Milesian chiefs, became fairy gods and dwelt in the Shei. In a passage in one tale, even the Fomorians are said to be dwellers in the Shei. And if you want to read more, the footnote says Revue Celtique, volume 12, page 73, and Hyde's Literary History, page 287. Now, I have Hyde's Literary History. Oh, Anthony, you have to get up off the chair. Don't be so lazy. Okay, it's a bit of a struggle sometimes trying to get books out because everything is tight. Now, look, this is Douglas Hyde's A Literary History of Ireland. Another brilliant book, by the way, Lexi. Ah, yes. So I'll think it's brilliant until I see the price. First published in 1899, and this one is a 1967. Douglas Hyde Trust republication. What did we say? Sorry, 267 was it, or 287? 287. Let me have a look now. This is a truly wonderful book. And funnily enough, not on my top 50. Why? By the way, I'm compiling that for the website. I've compiled up to number 15 so far. That will appear. That list of top 50 books to read about Irish myth and legend and folklore will appear on the website soon. And I'm going to have to add this, so it's going to be more than 50. Now, what? I'm just totally confused now. I tie myself up in knots sometimes. So, we were talking about, in a passage in one tale, even the Fomorians are said to be dwellers in the Shei. Oh, okay, let's read 287. Lou asked the cupbearer, "In what way wilt thou show thy power?" Oh, I hate those thy thou. But anyway, "I shall place," answered the cupbearer, "the 12 principal lakes of Ireland under the eyes of the Fomorians. But they shall find no water in them, however great the thirst for which they may feel." And he enumerated the lakes. "From the Fomorians the water shall hide itself. They shall not be able to take a drop of it. But the same lakes will furnish the Tuatha Dé Danann with water to drink during the whole war, though it should last 7 years. The druid Figel, the son of Mamos, said, I shall make 3 rains of fire fall on the faces of the Fomorian warriors. I shall take from them 2/3 of their valour and courage. But so often as the warriors of the Dé Danann shall breathe out the air from their breasts, so often shall they feel their courage and valour and strength increase. Even though the war should last 7 years, it shall not fatigue them." The Dagda answered, "All the feats which you 3, sorcerer, cupbearer, druid, say you can do, I myself alone shall do them." "It is you then are the Dagda," said those present, whence came the name of the Dagda, which he afterwards bore. Now, that was a quote from, I believe, Cotmai Chura. Lugh then went in search of the 3 gods of Dana, Brian, Jochar, and Jocharva, after whom he afterwards put to death for slaying his father, as is recorded at length in the saga The Fate of the Children of Tyrant, which we read over several episodes on episodes. And with these and his other allies, he spent the next 7 years in making preparations for the great struggle with the Fomorians. This saga and the whole story of the Tuatha Dé Danann contending with the Fomorians, who are in one place in the saga actually called Shei or spirits, is all obviously mythological and has usually been explained by Darbois de Jubanville and others as the struggle between the gods or good spirits and the evil deities. Yep. Yes, one big rabbit hole, Brendan. That's exactly what it is. Is the quartz covering Brunabonia original to the site? Yes. And I know why that's doubted now, because of one archaeologist who has suggested some of it was trucked in, which is absolutely nonsense, a scurrilous claim, actually. It was indeed found on the site, all beneath the cairn slip. So all of the white quartz was part of the original monument. Brendan Byrne, the whole floor is the rabbit hole. My jewelry studio is dorm there as well. Sad, my computers. Sorry. Thank you, Ola, says Rossio. That one's on my list, but I've restrained myself until I've read a few of the others I've ordered. I know. I mean, I have to read more of the Catholics of Ireland before I start getting stuck into Douglas Hyde again. The Shei seem indeed to have been looked upon as the home of many classes of supernatural beings, as in the case of Morrigu, mentioned below, who is stated to have come out of the elf mounds. Again, elf mounds, a terrible translation. A Shei of is the Irish. In one of the stories of the Táin, as well as in other tales, we meet with a statement in connection with the Dé Dananns, which is somewhat obscure. On one occasion, Cuchulainn, being tired and thirsty after a fight, comes to an old woman who was the Morrigu in disguise and had come out of the Shei, milking a cow, and asked her for a drink. And when she had given it to him, he said, "The blessing of the Dee and of the Anji be upon thee," G being gods, Anji being non gods. And this explanatory note is added in the LL text, which is, sorry, LL is a Book of Leinster, isn't it? Yes, it is. Quote, "The Dee were the magicians, Aes Coachta, folk of power, and the Anji were the husbandmen, Aes Trevere, folk of ploughing." That's interesting. Apologies, I'm taking margin notes here, or making margin markings. Nota bene. So, the G, blessings of the G and the Anji, the gods and the non-gods. The G were the magicians, or the Aes Coachta, folk of power, and the Anji were the husbandmen, the Aes Trevere, folk of ploughing. Wow. I have so much more work to do. I need to consult so many more papers and books and translations. The same incident is related in the Cor Anvan. And here the G or gods are in one place said to be the magicians, and a little farther on they're given as the poets, Aes Dana, thus identifying the poets with the magicians. Probably G in this and other like passages meant simply the druids or magicians who were also poets, and the Anji, the ordinary people or laity. Which is fascinating in itself because it almost suggests humorism. You know, as in that the folk who ended up being gods were originally humans. Wow. Many passages from old Irish authorities might be cited to show that the Dé Dananns were identified with the Shei or fairies. This is a long, long section, and that's good because it deals all with some of our favorite characters. But it's going to take several more episodes to get through just this section, which is good again. And we'll be distracted in the meantime by a reading from the Catholics of Ulster. Wow. In the story of the children of Lear, the two sons of the Dé Danann king Bov Jarug are represented as riding forward at the head of a party of their own people, who are called Machra Shei. Sorry, Marcra, Maorcra, Shei, Side, the cavalcade or of the Shei or fairies. And in an ancient manuscript copy of Shanachas na Relic, or the history of the cemeteries, the following statement occurs relating to the death of King Cormac MacArt. Quote, "Or it was the Shievra kind of fairies that killed him, i.e. the Tuatha Dé Dananns, for they were called Shievra," unquote. And of course, Cormac MacArt is said to have died by choking on a salmon bone while living at Cletchuk, above the Boyne, across from Knowth and Newgrange at Rossnaree. In a poem in the book of the Dun Cow, Mither, M-I-D-I or Midger, Mither, I think apparently is the more correct Middle Irish pronunciation, a noted fairy chief, again, fairy chief, very poor choice of words here, a noted Tuatha Dé Danann deity or figurehead, who had his Shei or palace under the hill now called Slieve Golry near Arda in Longford, is called Midger of the Tuatha Dé Danann race. So there you go. It's very specific. Marcra Shei, the cavalcade of the Shei folk. but an older race of Shei or earth gods, the local gods of the Aboriginal inhabitants, whoever they may have been, existed in the country before the deification of the Dé Dananns, and with these, the Dé Dananns became mixed up and confounded. The fact they did not escape, this fact did not escape the notice of O'Curry, that's Eugene O'Curry, who puts it very clearly in an appendix to one of his lectures. And there is a plain recognition of the existence of older gods in many passages of the ancient authorities. One of the oldest, the Mesca Ullad, after describing the arrangement already noticed by which the Dé Dananns were assigned the underground dwellings, goes on to say, quote, the Tuatha Dé Danann then went into hills and fairy palaces, Shivrui, so that they spoke with the Shei underground. Shivrui is literally a combination of Shei, as in an otherworld mound, and Brui, as in Brunabonia, as in a hostel. And in that very term, we see a unification, as it were, of the old name of Newgrange, Shion Bru, Shidenbroga, Shion Bru, Shivrui, so that they, quote, spoke with Shei underground, implying the previous existence of the Shei. And in another very old authority, the story of the sickbed of Cuchulainn, the Dananns are the Dananns. The Dananns are represented as on several occasions visiting the palaces of the previously existing fairies. Again, is a very poor choice of word here. But in course of time, the distinction between the Dé Dananns and their predecessors became lost, so that it will not be necessary to refer to it again, and the Shei or fairies will be treated as if all of one race. So I think really what we're talking about here is actually the later fairies and the earlier Dé Dananns. Dwellings of fairies. In accordance with all these ancient accounts, it was universally believed that the fairies dwelt in habitations in the interior of pleasant hills, which were called by the name of Shei. Colgan's explanation of this term gives an admirable epitome of the superstition respecting the Shei and its inhabitants. Quote, fantastical spirits are by the Irish called men of the Shei because they are seen, as it were, to come out of the beautiful hills to infest people. Wow. And hence the vulgar belief that they reside in certain subterraneous habitations within these hills. And these habitations, and sometimes the hills themselves, are called by the Irish Shei. Yeah. So just ignore the words vulgar and infest. Wow. Here it will be observed that the word Shei is applied to the fairies themselves as well as to their abodes. And Shei, as meaning a fairy, is perfectly understood still. When you see a little whirl of dust moving along the road on a fine calm day, this is called a Shigia, wind fairies, travelling from one lish or elf mount fort to another, and it will be better to get out of the way. In Colgan's time, the fairy superstition had descended to the common people, the vulgus, for the spread of the faith and the influence of education had disenthralled the minds of the higher classes. But in the 5th century, the existence of the Daoine Shei, the people of the fairy mansions, the people of the otherworld mounds, was an article of belief with the high as well as with the low, as may be inferred from the following curious passage in the Book of Armagh from the 8th century, where we find the two daughters of Leary, King of Ireland, participating in this superstition. Quote, then St. Patrick came to the well, which is called Clevach, on the side of Crochan, towards the east, and before sunrise, they, Patrick and his companions, sat down near the well. And lo, the two daughters of King Leira, Ethne the Fair and Fidelma the Ruddy, came early to the well to wash their hands, as was their custom, and they found near the well a synod of holy bishops with Patrick. And they knew not whence they came, or from what people, or from what country, but supposed them to be fair Shei, or gods of the earth, or a phantasm. And that is from the tripart life of Patrick. Fascinating stuff. So, the ladies who were daughters of King Lear saw Patrick and his bishops at the well and thought them to be fair Shei, fair men. You'll see that FIR on the door of the men's toilets in Ireland. Fur and Manaw, men and women. The idea is prevalent in the 9th, 10th, and 11th centuries as to what the people's beliefs were regarding the fairies before the time of St. Patrick are well set forth in the concluding paragraph of the tale The Sickbed of Cuchulainn in the Book of the Dun Cow. Quote, for the demoniac power was great before the faith, and such was its greatness that the demons used to corporeally tempt the people, and they used to shew them delights and secrets, such as how they might become immortal. And it was to these phantoms the ignorant used to apply the name Shei. Saskia is going out. Yeah. So the bias, as it were, of the Christian scribe there is seen. Sorry, just turning on a tiny bit of heat. Now, have to reboot. Hearing two Anthonys. Oh God, one is bad enough. I shall henceforth be known as Rex the Ruddy. Yeah, Ethna the Fair and Fidelma the Ruddy. Catholic new $52.45. You know you want to. Echo. Now we pay for the F word, says Brendan. Ulla Conrad asks, are there any books from authors who have collected stories from people meeting some Shei today? Yes, Eddie Lenihan is probably the best known in terms of collecting fairy stories or Shei stories. I should have it right up there, and I can't see it. I definitely should have it there. Give me a second. Oh, of course, I did say recently, didn't I, that things had been moved around. Meeting the, what's it called? Meeting the other folk, is it? Anybody? Eddie Lenihan meeting the other crowd is what it's called. You'll find it all over the internet on Amazon and ABE Books, and if you're in Ireland, Eason and World of Books and what's it called? Way Out West, Kenny's and all of those. So yeah, good place to start. Folklore.ie, Michael Fortune has collected a lot of modern folklore. He has very substantial website, social media, YouTube channel, huge collection. So he's another one. Debbie Sheehy's just recommending Michael Fortune. Yeah, there you go. Clips of older people with tales of meeting the fairies. So folklore.ie is Michael's site. Numbers of fairy hills and sepulchral cairns, not only those enumerated in the Book of Fermoy, but many others, are scattered over the country, each with a bright palace deep underneath, ruled by its own chief, the tutelary deity. They are still regarded as fairy haunts and are held in much superstitious awe by the peasantry. What time are we on? 5 past. Oh, we can keep going. Michael Pike tells us you can Google Eddie Lenihan and get about a dozen recorded stories. It's amazing. And it's Lenihan. Good stuff. Nature and powers of the fairies. Fairies, as they are depicted for us in the old writings, occupied an intermediate position between spiritual and corporeal beings. In some passages of the tales, especially those relating to the pagan heaven which they inhabited, they are spoken of as immortal, and they drank of Manannán mac Líre's ale and ate of the flesh of his swine, which preserved them from old age, decay, and death. But in other passages, they are made subject to death after living an immensely long time. They are often presented to us like men and women, and they are sometimes married to mortals. Men fought battles against fairies and hacked and killed them, and occasionally attacked their palaces. The Shei or fairy palace of Croghan was on one occasion attacked and plundered by Ailill and Maeve. Sometimes the fairies fought among themselves. In the Reine d'Enchanachas, it is related that two opposing parties of Fair Shei quarrelled and fought it out in the shapes of deer on the plain of Moinmai in Connacht, where several on each side were slain, and mounds were made of the hoofs and antlers that had been knocked off. Now, why am I taking a margin note here? And that is because, if you were paying attention, and I know, of course, you always do, you always pay very close attention to everything that's said on every episode. In Irish passage tombs dating from the Neolithic, between 5 and 6,000 years ago, we find objects made from antler of red deer. We find them, for instance, in the Fornocks. We find them in Sligo. We find them in Douth, etc., etc. In fact, in Sligo, if you remember the episode of Live Irish Myths that we did called The Sligo Bones, a study of the bones excavated in some of the cairns of Carrow Keel in 1911, a study in recent years, found that the earliest phase of activity at Carrow Keel, before human bones were deposited in the chambers of those monuments, objects made from red deer antler were interred, if that's the right word, placed in there. I'm extremely interested in this. Two opposing parties of men of the Shei quarrelled and fought it out in the shapes of deer in Connacht, and several on each side were slain, and mounds were made of the hoofs and antlers that had been knocked off. Wow. And the source of that is Revue Celtique 16, page 274. Hey, I have, because I have the Reine d'Enchanachas. Let us immediately go there. This is why the study of Irish mythology and folklore and place names and all of that is so labyrinthine and complex. You find stuff that interweaves or interlinks, but I lack the immediate memory capacity to do that. I would need now to concentrate on this for a day to get this in here, or else I will forget this, and I'll forget that we read it, because this is really important. This is a mythological context. This is a story in which the Fair Shei, the men or people of the Shei, were imagined to have fought a battle as deer, and the that when several were slain on each side, mounds were made of the hoofs and antlers that had been knocked off. Wow. Let me just quickly, because this is definitely a little bit of a, this is a little bit of a rabbit hole. I need to just have a look at this Revu Celtic, page 274. So what is this from? This is from the story of Loch Ree. Oh, Loch Ree. Okay, yeah. It did say it was in Connacht. Loch Riach, Canas, Ro Anamniad. Ro Anamniad. Oh, I can't pronounce that. Ni answer. Okay, apology. I'm just looking for the translation of that. Loch Ree. There was warfare among the men of the Elf Mounds in Moinmai in Cheermany, which is what we were just saying, between the four kings, Reach and Kostov, which literally means Blackfoot, I think, and Covel and Etwaling. This was the ground of the warfare, to wit, two lovable maidens who dwelt in the Elf Mount, namely, they were fighting over two women, folks, namely Kervil Balmai, daughter of Etwaling, and Lond Letjarug, which means half red. Does that mean pink? I don't know. Daughter of Covel. Reach and Kostov sued for the maidens and were rejected. Battle for them was demanded of the kings. They, Etar and Covel, asked in what plain the battle should be delivered. If it were fought in Elf Mounds, it's a terrible translation of, as again, the She Mounds. The She would be polluted. If they, the fighters, were seen among mortals, the elves would no longer be invisible at will. So they said they would fight at night on my Moan, and that the name of him who should first come therein should survive on the plain. They said, moreover, see, the other thing that doesn't help is Stokes's translations, while they were the only ones, and still are in many cases, available, we really need more up-to-date translations of a lot of this material into modern English, that if they delivered the battle in their own forms, there would be no distinction between men of the Elf Mounds and other mortals. So they all shaped themselves into the shapes of deer. So vehemently then was that battle fought, that they made in Moinmai 4 hillocks of their hooves and their antlers. In that battle fell Reach, king of the Elf Mound, king of the She, from whom Loch Riach is how it's spelt in Irish, or IACH, but anglicised to Loch Ree. Loch Riach is named. Therein also fell Covel, from whom is Carn Covel to the north of the loch. There too fell Kostov, from whom is Dara Kostov's Oakwood. There is in that plain a well whereout the loch break through the earth to quell the slaughter. In other words, the well burst into a lake. Tipra Trum, the well of the alder tree, is its name. Now there is no colour that is not on this loch from that time to this. Wherefore its name is Loch Riach, i.e. a space Ree of every colour there is. Neither side nor edge is known in that loch, for it is equally long in every direction. One of its customs is that every 7th year at the proper hour, if white sheep are cast into it, they all become crimson. Whence the poet, I heard of a wonderful warfare. Sorry. It looks like the first line of a poem, but I can't find the rest of it. Yeah. So that's the entire story from the Ren or Prose Dintianicus as it is contained in Revu Celtic. Volume 16 is from 1895. You could get the original, but do as I did and get yourself a facsimile reprint for much, much cheaper than you would pay for an original. I knew you would, Lexi. Your library grows by the day, by the episode. The fairies possessed great preternatural powers. They could make themselves invisible to some persons standing by, while visible to others, as Pallas showed herself to Achilles, or Achilles if you prefer, while remaining invisible to the other Greeks. And that's from the Iliad, Book 1. But their powers were exercised much oftener for evil than for good. They were consequently dreaded rather than loved, and whatever worship or respect was paid to them was mainly intended to avert mischief. They could wither up the crops over a whole district or strike cattle with disease. The belief that the illness of the cattle was sometimes due to fairy malignity found its way even into the Shanachas Mór, in which it is mentioned cattle as killed by fairy plague. In which is mentioned cattle as killed by fairy plague, with the gloss which the gloss explains as a broken or diseased kidney. The women from the fairy hills struck Cuchulainn with little rods, which brought on an illness that nearly killed him, and many other examples of similar infliction occur in the tales. To this day, the peasantry have a lurking belief that cattle and human beings who interfere with the haunted old lisses or forts are often fairy struck, which brings on paralysis or other dangerous illness or death. A brief account of a few of the leading Dé Danann and other fairy gods will now be given. Sometimes they are spoken of as gods, sometimes they are regarded as great men who ultimately came to be looked upon as gods. But this same uncertainty, whether pantheon deities are gods or men, or the tendency to regard them as great men who became deified, is found in the mythology of Greece, and indeed in that of all other ancient nations. Yeah, and I propose momentarily, just let me have a look. Mananon, Bov, Jarug, Dogda. Mananon, Dogda, Bov, Jarug, Angus, Macano, Bridget, Dian Kecht, Bonan, and Anna. Don, and loads of others. Well, not loads of others, but several others. Yeah. So, yeah, I propose to leave it there because that would be a nice sort of lacune. But I think that's a sort of a natural place to break. And when I say break, of course, I mean interval. So I'll see. Would really love to read you that chapter from the Catholics of Ulster, the one that is called From Cuchulainn to Christianity, next. So I think I will do that. And hopefully on doing that, you will appreciate what I've been saying about how wonderful it is. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And I don't intend to read any more than that because to do so, I believe, would be a breach of copyright and unfair. And I think you probably all, when you hear it, will probably want to buy yourself a copy. And just a brief mention of Coda. Literary History of Ireland, Douglas Hyde. Douglas Hyde was a major figure in the Celtic revival movement, and it went on to become the first president of Ireland. He collected folklore, but also was a scholar. Would be described as much more than just a folklorist. So, the Literary History of Ireland, you might think, there's this talk about the myths and then, suddenly start talking about the late medieval poets. Well, it not quite. Quite a lot of it is actually to do with earlier stuff. So I'll read the chapter titles just in case you're interested in pursuing it and perhaps adding it to your own collections. I paid €25 for this, and I bought it in the old bookshop on the Hill of Tara from my good friend Michael Slavin, who regularly takes money off me in exchange for very nice books. My copy will be in by next week, says Lexi. Brilliant. Super stuff. Then you can read along again, you know. So these are the chapter titles in Douglas Hyde's A Literary History of Ireland. Who were the Celts? Of course, that won't be nearly as accurate as something that would be written today. Earliest allusions to Ireland from foreign sources. Early history drawn from native sources. How far can native sources be relied on? Chapter 5, the pre-Milesian fable and early pantheon. So that would be dealing with the Tuatha Dé Danann. 6, evidence of topography and genealogy. 7, documentary evidence. 8, confusion between gods and men. We were just talking about that. 9, Druidism. 10, the Irish Elysium and belief in rebirth. 11, early use of letters, Ogham and Roman. 12, early Irish civilization. 13, St. Patrick and the early missionaries. 14, St. Bridget. 15, St. Columkill. 16, the first schools of Christian Ireland. 17, their fame and teaching. 18, conflicts with the civil power. 19, the bardic schools. 20, the suggestively pagan element in Irish literature. 21, the oldest books and poems. 22, early saga and romance. 23, the mythological cycle. 24, the heroic or red branch cycle, Cuchulainn. 25, Deirdre. 26, Toynbee Cuailnge. 27, the death of Cuchulainn. 28, other sagas of the red branch. 29, the Fenian cycle. 30, miscellaneous romance. 31, pre-Danish poets. 32, the Danish period. 33, from Clontarf to the Norman conquest. 34, sudden arrest of Irish development. 35, 4 centuries of decay. 36, development of Irish poetry. 37, the Ossianic poems. 38, the last of the classic poets. 39, rise of a new school. 40, prose writers of the 17th century. 41, the Irish annals. 42, the Brehon laws. 43, the 18th century. And 44, the history of Irish as a spoken language. The thing in its reprinted form, so this is the 1967 reprint. What did I say? First published 1899. Didn't I say that? Sorry, apologies. First published 1899. First edition in this form, 1967. It runs to a total of 600, including the index, 654 pages. You know you want to. Some of you do. I know that for sure. Some of you do. Anyway, let me just scroll for any questions or comments. Johnny Wilson is in Dallas, where the temperature is 86. Wow, it's hot. We heard earlier from Elaine that it's the equivalent of 33 Celsius, which is hot for the time of year, apparently. What was the book again? I was trying to ignore it until Anthony read all the chapter headings. Yeah, A Literary History of Ireland by Douglas Hyde. So the title of the book, you might look at that and go, is this about sort of more recent, Irish authors like Joyce and poets like Yeats and all that? You might, actually, most of it is concerned with material that make up our live streams and all the things we like talking about. I know where you live. Wahahaha, says Lexi. Sounds great. We'll have to get it, says Debbie. I shouldn't do this. I know it's like Rex is saying another book. I know, right? Yeah. Oh man, says Deborah. Now I want it. Yeah, because I read out the chapter titles. Folklore collection is still important. Yeah. Not demeaning that in any way, Samantha. But what I'm saying is that sometimes the folklore collectors are not the ones who write in a more scholarly way about the medieval manuscripts, so it's a nice combination. I've another book there by Hyde, which is the Western Lays, I think. Now, let me just have a quick look for it. This is not my way of recommending another book to you, by the way. What is it called? The Lays of... actually, I have another one too, yeah. The Lays of the Western Gale. Is that Hyde? Hang on. I'll tell you now whether it is or not. I'm having a little side conversation here to myself, so I'll return to the microphone. No, The Lays of the Western Gale is Samuel Ferguson. Beautiful little book. No, the other Hyde book I have is the one called Saints and Sinners. And this is obviously an old book. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Collected and translated from the Irish by Douglas Hyde. Legends of Saints and Sinners. Yeah, these are various legends. Some of them to do with, Christian figures. Some of them to do with pagan figures. Pagan, I don't like that word. Pre-Christian or non-Christian figures. And all based on material that Hyde had collected himself. Just trying to find out when it was originally published. The Gresham Publishing Company. It does not have a date on it. Saints and Sinners, Douglas Hyde. Should be able to find out fairly quickly. Saints. I'm not recommending this one to you right now, so don't be confused by that. I just happened to bring it up. 1915, it seems to be. I'm bringing it up because it's not the other one. The literary history is not the only Hyde book that I have. I haven't actually read this one, so can't necessarily recommend it. Mavanwe says, I just bought it, but on my Kindle, so it doesn't feel like another book. Is that the literary history one? Yeah. Now, Anthony, if only you could get paid for recommending books. Yes. I kind of do, in a roundabout way, because the people who support Mythical Ireland, the patrons, support the work in general. So if you want to support the work of Mythical Ireland and the work of recommending books, then consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. And if you become a patron at the Bronze Age level and above, which will cost you the princely sum of $10 a month, you will get the entire text, the draft text of my next book, the one after the Fornox book, which is complete. The Return to Sagish Companion. You'll get to read the whole lot of that before it's published, which I'm sharing currently with patrons at the Bronze Age level. I've read, Lexi is speaking to Barbara, I've read A Social History to page 456, and you need this book. Well, I've been reading it for 19 episodes, and you'll know from those that you need it. Yes, indeed. Michael Pike, thank you very much, says, being a patron is worth every penny. Thank you, Michael. Much appreciated. More book shopping for me, says Samantha. Sorry. I found a copy of Scottish Irish Pioneers in Ulster in America for $1. I love those finds. Anyway, let me just quickly check if there are any more questions. I don't think so. I will sign off and say thank you very much for joining us. As always, been a pleasure. Always a great pleasure for me to host you. And just to say before we leave that you know that I was never any good at mathematics. In fact, if I had 50 cents for every time I failed a maths test, I would have €11.63. Shelley Roisin is saying something to Barbara about English origin. What's that about? Maybe I don't want. Should I? Scotch Irish Pioneers in Ulster. An interesting one, by the way, that I was reading in the second chapter, I think it was, of the Catholics of Ulster, is the fact that before the plantations of the 1600s, before the plantation of Ulster, and remember, a lot of the planters were Scottish Presbyterians. In previous centuries, Scottish, what are they called? Gallowglasses, mercenaries, were brought over to help the Irish Gaelic clans to fight against the Anglo-Normans. A lot of these were from the Hebrides. They were from the islands. But yeah, I just think the whole thing is amazing. I'm learning all the time. It's the very complex history of this island. I'm learning about that, but I'm learning about connections that I didn't realize existed. Lexi says, "Thank you. Today was brilliant. Your recommendations are always the very best. Dot dot dot. Unfortunately," and of course, Lexi means unfortunately for my wallet. Sorry, you need it. They were planted in Scotland first, then to us. Well, it's interesting because we, of course, have talked about, and this is something that is dealt with at least briefly in this chapter that I'm going to read next week, about the Dal Riata, that kingdom of what we would now call Eastern Northern Ireland, the kings of which went to Scotland and conquered parts of Western Scotland, the Dal Riata kingdom extending across the sea. Connie says, "I am from that Scotch-Irish crew. Happy to be a Patreon." Thank you very much, Connie, of course, for your support. Very, very grateful for that. Who was the author of the Catholic book, says Rex. The author is Marianne Elliott. There's her name on the cover. And there's her picture on the back cover. This was published in 2000. That's 24 years. Yeah. So far, this has been brilliant. Anyway, I don't want to bum it up too much, as they say. In case when I finally read it, you kind of underwhelmed, Thank you, Adina. You're always very thank you, and glad that you enjoyed it, indeed, as I did, and as I say, always enjoy hosting my wonderful friends from around the world, all interested in the same thing, learning more and more and more about the past. Some of my Scots ancestors, says Barbara, came to the US to fight with us in the Revolutionary War, then went back, couldn't stay, so went to Ireland until they came back to the US in the 1840s. I think, wow, there's more stuff that you wouldn't even know about, The interwoven stories of Ulster and Scots is the DNA of them and now. Shelley Roisin says, "Need Dúirt me Aonrud." I did not say a thing. That's fair enough. We won't say otherwise. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll see you next week for that, hopefully, that wonderful chapter. Buy loads of books. Learn loads of things. And if you're interested, if any of you are in Ireland next Saturday, this Saturday coming, which is the 2nd of March, myself and Richard Moore are leading a tour of the Boyne Valley called Hidden History. And we're going to be talking about the hidden history, or the lesser known aspects of the Hill of Slane, Mellifont Abbey, Monaster Boyce, the place of the beautiful high crosses, and Millmount Drogheda. So if you're interested in joining us on that, look at the tours page on the website, and you can find booking and a full itinerary, booking details and itinerary. I'll just paste that in as, pardon me, I'm sorry, that's the dinner repeating on me. The link to that tour just being shared in there. Valentina, thank you. Good night to you. Also, Lexi is loving expanding her library. Same here. I'm from the Quins, says Rex. I couldn't chat today, says Joe, but I did hear every word. Well, almost every word. Thank you, Anthony Murphy. Stay well and be safe, my too. Brilliant stuff, Joe. And glad to hear that you were able to hear us all throughout your drive. Paul Campbell says, "Looks like a good book, all right." There's some fabulous stuff. There really is. And I think that's it. So we'll see you all next week. All that remains for me to say right now is Ichawa Kolosov, Slán go fóil, and Michael Pike's version of it is Tog go buggy, Tog go buggy. Actually, if you're interested, I'll spell it properly as a comment. Michael, thank you very much, and you also take it easy. Thank you, Kathleen Gallagher. Yes, indeed. Always delightful, Anthony. Much glee in every episode, says John Inman. Yeah, I hope that doesn't get too annoying. Sometimes people just want to hear the information, and they don't need the commentary and the giggles and the stupid dad jokes. I have a question for you about Monaster Boyce, Anthony, relating to a Welsh project. I'll email about this. Wish I could join you. No problem. Look out. I will look out for your email, Mavanway. In the meantime, definitely Toga Buggy. See you all next week. Bye. Good